Alright, today we're going to show you the process of skinning out a head to do a European mount. There's a million different ways to do it, I'm sure. I'm just going to show you my favorite way to do it, I guess, the most efficient way I've found. We took this buck out of the freezer yesterday that I shot on December 2nd. It is February 26th.
Sure.
Close enough? Sometime in late February. If you can't get to them right away, obviously put them in a freezer. They're just a lot more pleasant to work with if you're going to be cutting on them. They don't rot. So I guess the first step is getting these gloves on. Second step is going to be getting rid of all this excess hide in the back. We're not doing a shoulder mount, so that's just going to get in the way. So I'm going to start cutting on that. I'm hoping he's completely unthawed. We did just take him out yesterday though. Having a sharp knife is obviously going to make this a lot easier for you too. What I'll do next is I'm going to just cut all this, try to get all this hide off of his face. I'm going to start inside the mouth. The only thing you have to kind of be concerned about is running the knife away from the skull. You can get some gouges in there if you're pointing the knife towards the skull, and those are hard to get out. You're just going to start cutting along that lip and pull up with your other hand. And actually you can just probably stick the knife in there and run it right up to his ear about. Then you're just going to peel that over the nose pretty much. Once you get to the nose, it kind of swoops up and there's going to be some cartilage in there, and I always just cut it off just because it's going to save you time if you're boiling them or even just pressure washing it. Just cut it out, get it out of the way. After you get around that nose, you're just going to peel with one hand till you get up to the eye, cut around the eye socket, and then I'll probably stop with the front of the face once I get up to his burrs, maybe get that bottom jaw cleaned off, and then I'm going to start working from the back. Doing the bottom of the jaw is going to be pretty much just like doing the top of the nose. You're just going to peel with one hand, cut around the jaw. You don't have to be as careful with that because at least I throw it away. Most people throw that bottom jaw away.
What about aging them?
And yeah, if you're into that, you can do that too. I like to just make up an age. I mean, you can tell yourself that this is a 15-year-old deer if you want, if you don't get them aged.
No rules.
After I get it about up to the eyeball, I'm going to start working from the back. And usually what I do is I just cut straight up the middle and go off to one burr. Once you get up to those burrs, you're just going to pretty much shove the knife in there, and you're just going to twist it away from the burrs. Then you'll get to a certain point where that's really not working that well anymore, and that's when I've found a flat-headed screwdriver works pretty well. And you're just going to shove it. Actually, the needle nose, you can pull away with the needle nose because this is hard to grab onto. But you're just going to shove that in there and twist it away from the burrs. We're around that left burr now, and all you're going to do is peel with that left hand and go right between the ear and where his ear canal meets the skull. All the way up to the eye socket. That's what you don't want to do right there. Especially if you're doing them for someone else, you don't want to leave those cuts in there. That one's not too bad, but in the past I've done them where they get pretty bad and you can't really get them out. Now when you get to this eye, you're pretty much just going to stick your finger right through it. Shove that knife down in there and run it around the eye socket. I like to do the eye before I start to boil it. It's just a lot easier to grab onto. It's not as slimy. Grab the needle nose, and you're pretty much just going to grab down in there as far as you can and try to rip it out. And once you get it out, you can get a pretty good hold of it and cut away as much as you can in there. Sometimes you don't get all that hair off around the burr, and I like to take care of that before I start boiling it or pressure washing it. It's just a lot easier to get off before you start power washing it or boiling it before it gets all wet. And if you're power washing it, you run a risk of washing some of that color off around the bases too. Once you get done with the more sensitive areas like the nose, the eyes, and the burrs, you're just pretty much pulling and cutting away till you get all that hide off. Once you get all that hide off, you're just going to try to cut where the vertebrae meets the skull just to get all that neck meat off. Next thing we're going to do is take the bottom jaw off. And something important to remember throughout this whole process is what we're doing is we're going to try to get as much of this meat off as possible from the skull because it's going to make it way easier once you get to either pressure washing it or boiling it. And this jaw kind of goes up inside the upper part of the skull, and you're just going to try to run your knife between it. I don't know how easy that's going to be right now when the skull is frozen, but we're going to give it a try. Once you get enough of that meat cut off around the bottom jaw, you should be able to just pry, and what you can't pry, you can cut as you pry. Oh.
full?
If it's somebody else's, you're gonna want to be a lot more careful than that. We got everything off, including the bottom jaw now. I'm probably just gonna do a little bit more cutting at some of this excess meat, and we'll get to pressure washing and boiling it after this. We'll show you what it looks like before we start dipping it in the boiler, how clean we actually get it, but that's pretty much the process of skinning the skull. I mentioned that we're going to be using the boiler and pressure washer. This is the way that we found is the most efficient way to get all this meat off to where it's just the white skull. Obviously we're going to put something on there to whiten it when we're done, and we're going to show you guys that process next. Alright, so once you get the deer to this point, there's several different ways you can do it, but today we're going to show you the process of boiling them. I guess from my experience, you don't want the water to be boiling. You want it to be almost boiling, because if it gets too hot, that skull will get really brittle. What I'm doing now, I guess we decided, since this is warped skull, we're going to wrap it with saran wrap, just because we didn't really talk to him about how good he wanted this done, and it's not mine. So this is going to be the bare minimum way to do it if you only have a propane heater. Like I said, there's ways to make it easier, like if you have an air compressor or a power washer, that can help get all this gunk out of the skull faster. Later in this video, we're going to show you the ways to do that, but with Aaron's buck, we're just going to show how to do it with the propane boiler. How long do you think it's been in there?
Probably been in there
Hour
for
and a half, 2 hours?
2 hours.
That'll cool it down a little bit too. It was a little warm. Solid on. Shh. Pretty solid on there yet. Shh. There is meat that just connects it to that upper jaw. Just get her popped off, and I don't know. This might be the easiest way to do it. Watch out for debris. Like that. Now that's off, and everything just kind of loosens up easier then. We gotta get to the eye dock though. So we're just gonna let it sit here and stew and start peeling stuff off when we get back. Good luck, son.
Thanks, bud. I guess thanks, Dad.
I'll call you when I need picked up. Turns out, definitely had a thorn in there.
They took it out.
Yeah, just plucked her right out of there.
Everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't even really hurt anymore.
You just need some eye drops or something? Or
Yeah, I got some eye drops, got a little other ointments and stuff, you know.
So basically what you're saying is I could have done it at home.
Yeah, right. Well, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, could have saved some money and just like done it at home.
Looks yummy, doesn't it? He's been boiling for several hours now, and you just kind of got to scratch the meat away till it's all gone. One thing I forgot to add when we introduced the videos, we're not adding anything to the water. Some people add bleach or peroxide. We're just doing regular water, and then that way it doesn't seem to stain this as bad. We're able to get them pretty white without doing that, and we'll show you how. But we're gonna scratch at this thing till all the meat's gone, and we'll continue tomorrow morning probably. Alright, it's day 2 working on this skull. The wind is just blowing right in our yard, so we're in Greg's garage. One thing I will note is we did change the water on the pot. I don't know if it helps at all, but it gets kind of scummy and just like a cake of white stuff. If you don't change the water out, it's just more pleasant to work with, I guess. It is a pretty messy job, but Zach's just scratching away at it, and that's basically all you do. You get all the meat off of it. The hardest thing to get out is the brain, and like I said earlier, you just got to be careful with that tip of the nose. It's pretty fragile. We're back at the house. An important thing that we haven't mentioned yet is try to have as many friends as possible, because we don't own any of this stuff. We didn't even have gas to put it in the power washer that we borrowed from somebody else. So that's going to be important if you're poor like us. Everything's besides the buck.
Yeah.
That's not ours, that's someone else's. And they're all from different people too.
That's one friend.
The gas is different friend. This is Greg's truck, because we don't have a truck to get this stuff back to our house. I sleep on the couch in there. Brody sleeps on the other couch. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome.
Keep pumping it, dude. Yeah, push that lever forward.
We'll get it. Alright.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, you can give her a go.
Give her a couple primes there.
First try, baby. I can do it. Well, here's day 2 of the process on this one. As you can see, it's kind of a weekend project if you're just doing the boiling style. Honestly, we'll probably get this one done as soon as we get this one done tomorrow, because we'll probably have them both boil at the same time and be taking this one out to pressure wash it and keep scratching away on this one. It's obvious that the boiling process is the longest process if you want to use the bare minimum, but tomorrow we're going to get to boiling this one, taking it out, pressure washing it, and just keep scratching away at this one.
Go Harley Davidson, right?
Like, that is a point. Like,
Harleys are sweet.
no, no, like, little side note is that if you have a bunch of nice clothes like me, you're just going to have to pick your worst shirt, and this is probably my worst shirt. But people do use wetsuits and stuff because you're going to get pretty dirty when you're using the power washer. Alright, well, this is day 3, just boiling. I think you could probably finish this in 2 days for sure, maybe even 1 if you started a little bit earlier than we have been. But basically, once you get it to this point, like I said, when you're skinning it, you have to be careful with the nose. You kind of just have to let that fall out and pull at it. With a needle nose is what I use, but you got to be careful with this cartilage in here if you want to keep it. And then the other thing is, you just got to get something. I've been just using this knife. You kind of just swish it around in there, try to break up the brain, and then you just shake it out kind of, and that's what takes so long. And you're gonna want gloves for this. At least I like wearing gloves because it is pretty gross. And basically you're just gonna keep scratching away at it till you get all the meat off, and it won't be completely white when you're done with it. And we're gonna show you what we do to whiten the skulls once we're done, and then we'll show you our preferred way to hang them on the wall. And like we said, we are doing this with the bare minimum. I mean, I'm just using a knife. There's a lot of tools that'll work better than this. Zach just said people use like a drill with a brush that he knows, and they just stick that in there and mush all the brains up. Me and my dad use an air compressor, and we just stick that in there and hold it away from us and blow the air in there, and it kind of comes flying out. Pressure washer works good if you got one. And we're going to show you what it's like to use the pressure washer on this one and how much easier it is. I talked about how you don't want to get it too hot, and I guess I'll give you an example of what it will start to look like if it does get too hot. You can see this is starting to move. You don't have to worry about that yet. Just kind of have to turn the heat down. We'll be able to glue that back together once we're done. The biggest concern is when this falls off, and you can always fix that too by gluing it back together. It's just a lot easier to just do it right the first time, I guess. But you can see now that it's heated up, there is some play in there, and it is starting to move around. And all we'll do is we'll tape that, or we'll glue it, wrap some tape around, and everything will be just fine. Oh, that's a good piece right there. And as you let it sit in the water, it'll just kind of fall out by itself. There's just stuff that gets hung up in there that you have to pull out or whatever. Yeah. That's a noser.
Just looks like you're pulling out a piece of canary grass, dude.
We're about 2 hours in to boiling and pressure washing this skull. We got it all skinned out yesterday, but we're just going to kind of prove how much faster this process is than just boiling it. Just took this one out after pressure washing it the first time. We're going to go for our second round now, and you can see it's already almost as clean as the one that we've been boiling for almost 2 days here. That just goes to show how much faster this process is. But I'm going to head them over to the cardboard there and start blasting away at them. And all we've done with this one is power washed it before we started boiling it, boiled it for about an hour, took it out, power washed it off one more time, and it's been in the boiler for about 2 hours now. So we're going to go for a third round of power washing. And that's just the second round of power washing him, basically. You can see it's already almost caught up to that one that we've been boiling for probably close to 10 hours now, wouldn't you say, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much got everything except for inside this nose here. And then gonna squirt, I guess when you're doing the brain with the power wash, you're just putting it right in this here and blowing it in there, and that's gonna be the two most difficult things to get out, is this nose and the brain. You have to be way more cautious with the nose than you do the brain. You can pretty much just stick it in there and not really worry about it. But that's gonna be what takes the longest. Other than that, it's pretty clean. It's pretty impressive, actually. He's been boiling for about 2 hours again, and this is going to be the third time we take him out to power wash him. As you can see, he's super clean already. This will probably be the last time we have to do it. Then we're going to get to the whitening process after this. But total, we've only had to do this about 3 times, leaving it about 2 hours in the boiler and pretty much just spraying it off for 10 minutes. So really it only amounts to about half hour, 45 minutes of work, maybe an hour total. And you can step away for when it's boiling for those 2 hours. You can do other stuff. We've been doing other stuff all day. In contrast, the other one that we've been boiling has probably been boiling for about 12 hours total. And obviously we step away from that one too, but it turns into more of a weekend project. I guess you need almost 2-3 days to do it, depending on how much time you have to commit to it in one day. We're going to keep doing the power washing in the boiling style just because we feel like it gets the skull a lot cleaner and it goes a lot faster. If I can get it started.
If I help.
Just to kind of show why we wrap them up, I guess we could cut away to a example of like Zach's buck from this fall. We didn't wrap him up, I don't think, when we were power washing it, but you don't lose any of that color around the bases. And if you're doing them for other people or just have a super dark one, I know Aaron's got one with a bunch of bark on it. It's going to help preserve that stuff so you don't lose it. But all in all, what do you think that took? Probably 45 minutes of total work on it.
Yeah. Not a lot of time. It's just the little bit of boiling, but yeah,
being able to stick around and monitor it. I mean, like we said, probably an hour to 2 hours of boiling between. But if you're just tinkering around the house on a weekend or something like that, you can get a lot done. I guess the biggest points I would say is being careful with that nose, not letting the water get too hot. I like to switch out the water to make sure it's clean water, making sure it's above where the skull is in the pot. But now we're just going to get to whitening it after he dries up a bit, and after that we're going to get him up on the head honcho mount.
Go ahead and just pour it in there.
Alright, we got him inside now, and I mentioned earlier that you're going to want to have a lot of friends because if you don't own stuff, they can just drop it off. And our friend Thad just dropped this off for us. It's called Salon Care 40, and it's basically just a product you can get from any hair salon. And all we're going to do is we're going to take this brush, we got about a 1-inch brush here, and brush it on a thin coat and just stay away from the bases, obviously, because then you'll get some discoloration or it'll turn it white. But other than that, you can pretty much just watch and see how we do this. Biggest thing is just going to be to stay away from the bases, at least for me. When you got some good color on them, you just want to keep that. Alright, we got a pretty light coat on that one. We're just going to set it off to the side now, let it dry, probably rejoin that one in the morning. I'm going to grab Aaron's, get to working on that one. And this one of Aaron's might take a couple extra coats of this stuff just because, like I said, it is a little bit darker. The main thing is just staying away from those bases, letting them dry. We're going to do about 3 to 4 coats, that's what we typically do. Aaron's might take a couple more, but we're just going to keep plugging away at them. And we'll show you the finished product and get them hung up on the wall. Alright, here they all are, all finished up. This is Aaron's buck, the one that we just straight boiled. This is the one that I shot last fall. We pressure washed and boiled that one. You can see that one turned out a little bit whiter. But all we did was 3 rounds of that paste, and we're pretty satisfied with how they turned out. But now we're going to get to how we hang them on the wall. And this is called the head honcho mount. You can get them in packs of 3 or 6. And all you got to do is take them out of the box first, obviously. Screw them into the wall. They're all one piece. And then you take where the skull meets the vertebrae. You slide that right into the hook in there. And they're super easy to hang on the wall. You can take them off, show them to your buddies. That's what we like about these European mounts, is you can handle them, pass them around the room, everybody can hold them. But we got a few more of these head honcho mounts that I told you about earlier, and the link is in our description where you can find these. But they're super simple to use. Everything that you're going to need to assemble them will come in this little package. But thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. And hopefully by this point you can do your own European mounts next fall.